Hey everyone, we'll continue with the chapters about the Sicilian. So in this video, the next chapter, I want to talk about the closed Sicilian, particularly about the Fianchetto line. So it starts with e4, c5, and then knight c3, knight goes to c6, and then pawn g3. What's White's plan? First of all, they want to develop the bishop on g2, have the fianchetto set up, and have a close game. Compared to the open Sicilian, where White is trying to push the pawn to d4 and open up the game, here the game is going to be slow. So the ideas, the threats will not be there right now, right immediately. And the bishop will jump to g2, the knight will get out, and White will try to play. Usually they will try to play on the king side. There are different setups as black. I want to show you some of the dangers that can happen in this position. The best move, in my opinion, is pawn g6. If we play a bit passive, like e6, bishop g2, let's say pawn d6, knight e2, knight f6, short castle, bishop e7 to develop, d3 short castle, all of a sudden, instead of opening the game, White will start pushing the pawns on the king side. Usually we want to do the pawn turn when we have the opposite side castle. That's one of the main basic rules in the middle game strategy, in the middle game positions. Here White will do the move pawn to h3. Let's say we do the move bishop d7 and then f4, a6, then g4. It's like White is trying to violate some rules. They're trying to like bend the rules, but in this position they can't. Because the game is quite closed, particularly the center is closed, the diagonals are not open for our bishops, there are no open files, so it's very hard to get the king on g1. White's plan is going to be pushing those pawns like g5, h4, f5. The knight will come to g3. This queen will eventually get to g4 or h5 squares. And White can start a very huge, like massive attack. For example, b5, g5. Knight goes back, knight g3. After b4, when we're trying to build our game, this knight will jump back to e2, a5, h4, knight c7, f5. And then later knight to f4. In some positions, f6 is possible. So the queen will join the game with queen g4 or queen h5. This pawn can move. You can see how scary the position will become only on move like 15, 16. So we need to be very careful. That's White's main plan. This is why I would advise for the move g6, because we will fianchetto our bishop too, and compared to White's bishop, our bishop on g7 is going to be much stronger because it's on the open diagonal. This pawn on e4 is like an obstacle for the light squared bishop for White's side. Bishop goes to g2, bishop g7. There are different interesting possibilities for White, like different plans how White can develop. The pieces will start from the regular knight e2. Again, as black, we need to play the move e6. In my opinion, we can do the other interesting option, which is like d6, short castle, knight f6. But why I don't like it, because after, h3, to not allow any bishop g4, short castle, pawn d3, let's say bishop d7, if we're just going to do some moves, f4, rook to b8, g4, queen c7, then f5, White will start the same massive attack on the king side, bringing the pawns, creating such a strong pawn chain. Later, the knight will jump to g3. The queen can come to the king side. This knight can jump back to like e2, let's say b5, knight g3, and then g5, h4, the knight can retreat. So all of the pieces will move towards our king. This can be, quite scary. This is why I would advise for the move e6. Later on, in some positions, we'll talk about the move pawn e5, which is the Botvinnik setup, but there are like pros and cons with this. Usually I advise the students to play that if the knight is going to get to f3. We will check that. So after knight e2, we will do e6, short castle, and then knight e7. This is a very cool and flexible setup. Remember, you do this against the Grand Prix, against close Sicilians, almost never against the open Sicilians when White is in time to push the pawn to d4. So d3, we do d6. This is our the style. So pawn from h7 to c5. We control lots of important squares. The knight on e7 to not be on the way of the bishop. This knight, by dark squared bishop and the pawn, will control the d4 square, and the knight from e7 will help for the move knight d4 and then knight c6 actually for this plan. If white will try like f4, short castle, g4, it seems, oh, it's going to push those pawns. What we're going to do? We can stop him playing the move f5. Very important, like a key move here. So white's attack is going to be stopped. Sure, our king is going to be weakened, but his king is weakened too, so we're totally fine. It's like equal, we're on equal terms. Takes, you can take with the f pawn. If white captures one more time, just be happy. He got an isolated pawn. Take with the knight or with the bishop, and black's position is just amazing. So sometimes white will do the move bishop to e3. Let's understand why. There are like two ideas. One of them is queen d2 and then bishop h6, but here it's not that powerful. We will see in which position, which line this can be like more threatening. But the other idea that white wants to do is the move d4. That's why whenever you see this bishop e3 and you see that white wants to push, knight d4 instant. Bishop goes to e3, knight d4, pawn f4. Again, just short castle. We're not scared of this capture. We just take after knight b5, queen b6, or knight to c6. These double pawns are actually quite good for black because we cover lots of important squares. Later on, our dream is to get the knight to e3 as an outpost. If white doesn't capture, we will just do our usual game. We have the b6 and bishop b7 or rook b8 to get out of this bishop's diagonal and then start our game with b5, a5, and d4. And again, if g4, what we're going to do? Of course, pawn f5 to stop white's game instantly. Let's try to understand what are some other setups for white. So this is the general idea, how to bring our pieces, how to do a good setup against the close Fianchetto Sicilian with g3 and then bishop to g2. If white plays knight f3, we can do the same exact thing, e6, knight e7, d3, and then like d6. But we can also try e5. This is probably the only place when e5 is like very strong, and then d6, then knight e7. I know you can say, we're close to our bishop. What's the idea? But the main difference is that after short castle, we have an interesting approach, interesting plan playing f5, f4, and we can create that attack because this knight is on f3. White is not in time to play the move f4. Let's understand when it is dangerous to do the same thing. For example, if white starts with the move f4, and or he goes with the d3 first, and we play like e5, and then suddenly they play knight h3, and then short castle knight e7, f4, short castle, because white did the f4 move first, he can start an attack faster. There's a really cool trap which starts with the move f5, takes, he takes bishop f5, and sacrificing the rook for the bishop, suddenly playing bishop e4. It seems that everything is cool for us. We can play like knight f to e7. What's going to happen? Then the great gift comes next. Bishop h7, queen h5 check, knight g5, the checkmate threat, queen f7. We can check again, check one more time, and then knight e6. So trying to win the bishop. The queen is hanging, so it can be a chance to checkmate this one. If we do knight c to e7, then queen h5, we're going to lose this knight because we can't get to h6. The bishop is there. If queen d7, white can play at least pawn to g4, attack the knight, capture it, has two minor pieces for the rook with strong attack. So we need to be very careful. But as I said, usually, almost whatever white does, this, f4, d3, knight f3, let's say f4, just d6, knight f3, d6, short castle, knight e7, d3, short castle. You see g5, sorry, g4, pawn f5. You see bishop e3, he wants to do d4, and he can create some weakness on our end. We know it, knight to d4, and everything is fine. There are some lines, for example, like g4, e5, bishop d4, knight e2 here. But usually, black has a good game. I'll just cover a bit the move e5. We can take, There is like knight f5 as a move, knight c6, knight captures f3, bishop d7 is suggested by the engine. So we'll give up this pawn, but then play bishop c6. The pawn on e5 is very weak. The bishop is hanging. We will take on e5, exchange the bishops, otherwise our rook is hanging on f8, and then capture on c6 with a normal position. We can start our game on the king side. I'm not gonna go much into the lines. The most important thing is the setup. So whenever he wants to do d4, we move our knight there. Unless some rare exclusions will be there where we don't. g4, f5. But there is one important setup that white can try to do in order to make our life harder. How can we, learn the opening without hardships? Of course, something annoying can arrive. And I remember I played such a game first time in the World Championship in like 2004, even though I won that game, but, I had that bitter taste afterwards, or bitter aftertaste afterwards. So I didn't understand like what happened, what went wrong. And my coach told me that, this idea is quite interesting and can be quite poisonous for black's position. So you need to know how to react against it. So again, against usual stuff, we do the c6 and then knight e7. What if white plays the move d3 first? And again, we do e6, and then they play the move bishop e3. You're like, okay, what's the difference? We're just going to play d6. If knight e2, one more time, we will do knight d4 because he wants to push. And short castle, knight e7. Everything seems fine. But white does the move queen d2. Like, okay, knight e7, what's next? And then he goes bishop h6. If we capture, he captures back. Our kingside is weak. We can't short castle. So later white can do a long castle or just bring the knight to e2 and then short castle himself. So it's going to delay our development. A bit scary position for black. In some scenarios, he can do queen g7, rook g8, queen takes h7, and win a pawn. It's impossible to trap this queen, just too many squares to go back. And we can't castle again. So if we do short castle, which I played in the game, instead of regular knight e2, my opponent did h4, and I realized that something is wrong. So this is not the position that I wanted to have, because now white wants to push h5, open up the h file, and eventually create a deadly attack. In that game, I played rook e8, and I think after takes h5, I'm in big trouble. Again, the stockfish can try to save the game by like rook h8, because after takes queen h6 will not be a threat anymore. But still, it's very annoying. Why should I allow all of this if we can try to do something better? I was a bit lucky. My opponent did long castle. I played bishop h8 to save the bishops. Then later I created my own counterplay on the queen side and won. So, but it was quite tough. And that's why I wanted to learn what to play in order to not allow this. So we know that the plan is bishop h6. For now, we will leave the knight on g8. At first, I thought that, okay, we can do a useful knight d4 as a move. And if knight to e2, knight e7, now bishop h6 takes, I'm just going to win the rook. That's not going to work for white. But then suddenly, there is a move like knight d1. Strange, I know, but white wants to do some kind of a lapping plan, c3, d4. This is why it's important to know as many different positions as possible. I know it's hard to memorize all of that, but this is how you need to learn chess. You need to try to dedicate your time, lots of efforts in order to understand different setups and try to use your knowledge as a weapon in different situations. It's like, we go to school, we learn lots of subjects, and we're trying to connect them with each other and use them in different situations. So same thing is here. Knight d1, knight e7, c3, knight c6, knight e2, and I think that white's position is going to be a bit better because later they will try to do the move pawn d4, or they can play d4 a bit faster. Maybe it's fine for black. My advice is to play the strange move queen a5. Usually we don't want to do this because we don't want to develop the heavy pieces, especially the queen, because it can be under attack. But what's the idea? We don't allow the move bishop h6 yet. later on it's not going to be that dangerous. In some positions we will do that, and we don't want to allow him to play knight d5 without the queen exchange, because now if the queens are exchanged, then there is no attack, just knight e7, short castle, push the pawns on the queen side, or maybe in the center at some point, and just enjoy your game. Everything is fine. So if he's going to play knight e2, only now knight d4. Again, I don't want to remind you that d4 is there. Just be careful about that. So knight d4, short castle, and we can do either knight takes, queen takes, and then knight e7, or immediate knight e7. We know that we're not scared of bishop takes d4, c takes d4. Such endgames are really cool for black. This pawn will make the pawn on c2 a weakness. The pawn on d4 is not weak. So black can do knight c6, bishop d7, or rook d8, maybe leave the king in the center, no castle. So, and what's really important that after bishop to h6, we will do knight capture c2 with the check. If queen takes, then bishop h6, white lost the bishop. And if knight captures c2, queen takes, bishop takes, the queens are exchanged. Even if we're not winning this pawn, of course we will do, because we're very greedy. So in chess, you need to be one. Just try to earn as much as possible, try to capture as much as possible. So after rook b1, you will do bishop g7. You're cool, but even if it's not there, let's say somehow it's defended, you played earlier rook b1, you just play like knight c6, everything is fine for you. That dangerous threat of bishop h6 and then h4, h5 is completely gone. So we can congratulate ourselves. Sure, after knight e7, white can play knight c1, but now we're safe to do the move short castle. Again, if bishop h6, now the c2 pawn is hanging all the time, takes, and then knight c2, and he doesn't have any piece that can create a threat on this side. So if knight goes to b3, we can capture it, or we just move the queen back to have the knight on d4, then bring the knight to c6. One more time, takes, knight b5. We're in time to play queen b6, or we're fine. So again, if you'll see that I'm wrong somehow, check with the stockfish, see what I'm missing. But the most important thing is to understand the overall plan. So let's review it again. Let's summarize. If we have this position, white's plan is to do the fianchetto, and if we play a bit passive, push those pawns all of a sudden out of nowhere on the king side. You will be quite surprised how effective this can be. It's a bit similar to the king's Indian positions for those who play and know it well. So after g6, it's important to try to do the move e6. In rare scenarios, we do the move e5. Again, we don't want to play, very passive, like for example, knight e2, and then d6, knight f6, allow this f4, g4, f5 again, because white can create an annoying attack. That's why we do the move e6, and we can do the flexible setup with knight e7 and b6. This is it. Bishop e3, he wants d4, you bring the knight. When the pawn is going to g4, f5, you stopped it. Everything is cool. If you will remember all of this stuff, I think you'll be fine. So this will be the end of the following chapter. So knight c3, and then pawn to g3, which is that close Sicilian. So please like, subscribe. I wish to see lots of comments there. So by the way, you can try to send me your games, especially about the Sicilian. Maybe later we can, just do some interesting videos and analyze those. I'll be happy to discuss the thematic games as much as possible. So some cool Sicilian games. The chapter is about the close Sicilian, but in general, what we have in the videos. So that's going to be cool. I want to help you, and you will help my channel as well. So this is it. So see you in the next chapters, and I wish everyone has a great day and a great week. Bye-bye.